Welcome back to another one of my Talk Tuesdays. Talk Tuesday number 9. What? Number 9? That's crazy. Today's Talk Tuesday is going to be a little different, as all mine are, in the sense that this is something that you're not going to hear from work, from school, from teachers. You're not going to hear this from anywhere else except here, and hopefully in the future from more sources. So stay tuned. Hey guys, today's topic, as you already know from the title of this video, is why it's okay to be wrong. Oh my god, the fan is on. Y'all, can you even hear me properly? Okay, I turned off the fan, so hopefully you guys can hear me better. Being wrong is so looked down upon in our society, which makes sense. I mean, in schools, you have to be right to get the grade. You have to get to the correct solution. After all, arguments, there's a right side, there's a wrong side in the most scenarios. So, I mean, our society really just works upon this idea that, you know, you have to be right, which basically means you have to think the same way to get to the same answer. It's basically like we all have to think the same way, which means that we are all the same. That's kind of what society is trying to get us to do. Like, this is just my personal opinion, but trying to get us all to fit this certain mold, or if you're not like that, then certainly teach us how to fit into a certain mold so that society can continue functioning the way it has been, which is how we have gotten to where we are in civilization, and we have gotten to, you know, have a structure that kind of works-ish, at least works enough for us to, I guess, survive. I'm sorry for all the interruptions. I feel like that's just happening for some odd reason, but I'm gonna continue on. Now, we have all grown up knowing or having an understanding that, you know, you can't be wrong majority of the time because you need to be getting stuff right? My issue with that is when you get stuff right, there's no learning that really happens. I'm not talking about a specific situation. I'm not talking about like a test. I'm not talking about like an interview. I'm not talking about like a certain equation. Like, obviously there's things that are right and there's things that are wrong, but I'm talking about in general, like having a fear of being wrong. That's what I'm trying to get at. So I personally feel like being wrong is not a bad thing because you learn the most when you're wrong. I mean, if you think about it critically, you get a test and you have like a 60% on it, or failing grade, whatever you think failing is for you, and you're upset. But what usually happens is that you put in extra effort, you learn something cold, you have it down packed, and then you do better on your next test. Now, that wouldn't happen if you had gotten like a 90% or 100, whatever you think is good, and then you just don't really study. So yes, it's a good indication that you're in the right direction, whatever that means for you, but I don't think necessarily being wrong is a bad thing. The reason I'm inspired to talk about this is because I just recently started a master's in accounting. Yeah, so creative. But on our first day, like during our orientation, our professor actually told us that, listen, this is going to be a learning curve. It's going to be very different from undergrad. In undergrad, you're given practice questions and you learn how to, you know, work through whatever it is, the depreciation expense, whatever the case may be, and then you learn how to answer it properly and you do deliver it and then you get the grade. Cool, right? So in our master's now, it's kind of the opposite because our professor told us that this is going to be your career, which means there are going to be things that you don't know about, and we're trying to prep you to actually learn how to encounter the things that you don't know about. So in doing so, you're going to be really bombarded with things you don't know about, and you're wrong most of the time, but that's essential for learning how to overcome these obstacles. And you're not always going to be right, and that's not the world we live in. And I've kind of thought to myself, damn, why is this the first time I'm hearing such a thing? Like, I automatically was able to retain information better. I was able to just like understand, like, so far it's been a month, so I was able to understand material better, and I'm able to actually understand why I'm doing what I'm doing as opposed to just memorizing through stuff. And I understand that, like, hey, if I'm gonna be wrong, it's fine. Being wrong actually means there's scope for you to learn something, and then being right just means you're on the right track. It's just kind of the switch in the mindset, if you know what I mean. Like, instead of being so terrified of being wrong that you're stressing out, you miss the whole point of why you're even doing what you're doing because you're just so scared and your only objective is to get to the end goal. I feel like it defeats the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying that having goals is a bad thing. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that you got to look at the situation holistically instead of just focusing on your end goal. That's a very cliche saying. I feel like a lot of people have talked about that. I'm specifically talking about being wrong. Now, this isn't just a school thing. This is like trying new things. And I've seen so many people not try new things that maybe is passion driven, things that are a little bit riskier, things that are new to them but are interesting, and that people are just scared because what if they're wrong? What if they make a wrong decision and then they fall off track? And what if they're wrong and that they just don't like it anymore and they want to go back? Whatever the situation is, I'm making this video because, listen, you're not always going to be right. And if you are always right, that means you're literally not living. Our job is to evolve, okay? Evolve does not happen by always being right, because when you're always right, there's no challenge, there's no growth, there's no scope for growth, and there's really nothing you can really get out of it. It is a good sign that you're on the right track, but there's really nothing more you can get out of it. I also just wanted to bring that out there. There is no case study that I could actually find on this, which is really interesting, because most of my Talk Tuesdays are situations that I have come across that I find is very important to talk about and bring to surface and help people think in a different way. And usually there's case studies or there's articles, there's publications that I can bring up that have further improved my point for those people that are more skeptical and analytical, but I wasn't able to find anything like that. And I think it's because it's such a weird subject. Like, being wrong is wrong. I'm not okay with anything else. That's not what society wants, you know? Like, however, in the sequence of my Talk Tuesdays, I will provide tips and tricks, because I love tips and tricks on how you can actually overcome this huge hurdle of being so scared to be wrong that you just don't try anything new, or thinking, like having this such hardwired back when you were young, back when you're in school, ideology that like being wrong is bad. Let's get into the tips and tricks. Tip number 1, when you're trying something new, or if, you know, something as small as being in a group setting and you're communicating with people and you're scared to be your authentic self because it's natural, you don't know people, you're getting to know them, you have to figure out like, oh, am I gonna say something wrong? Just be yourself. So this is a very interesting tip, and I really think it's an important one. Being yourself makes you vulnerable enough to the world standards that they have of you. What I mean by that is people expect you to be a certain way in a certain environment. You being yourself will defy that, and it will actually help you be happier, help you be more fulfilled, and you'll live your most authentic version, which is the goal. Being yourself in the situation also means that you're being vulnerable enough to understand that like, hey, not everyone's gonna like me. That's inevitable. If everyone did like you, that's torturing for you, because that means you're a different person with the different people you meet, because you've somehow mastered the skill of changing your personality with different people just for the fact that they can like you, which is ridiculous, and I know how ridiculous it is because I've been there, I've done the same shit, and it's not fun. So tip number 1 is just to be yourself. That's really important to overcome the ideology of being wrong, because when you're being yourself, you really give yourself the power to say what you need to say in the moment and be who you really are, and you're actually going to be attracting people who are like-minded, and those people who really appreciate you for you are going to gravitate towards you, and those that aren't, they can leave. Shoo. Tip number 2. This one's a little bit more like self-work, I would say. Journaling is like hands down really, really important. I think just reflection in general is very important. If you just write down your thoughts where you were scared to say something. So this could be a situation at work, you maybe were trying to say something for the betterment of your team or something, and you were just too scared to say it. Just write it down. I am saying this because it's really important for you to see and really reflect on how you're acting, because oftentimes you can in your own head be like, oh, like I'm being fine, like I totally like be myself, I totally tell people when they're wrong and stuff. Really just reflect on it and come home, journal something down. The prompt could be as easy as like, what are some things I felt bad about? What are some things that I could have done better? This is really important, and I know a lot of people don't really say this. Usually people talk about journaling in like a way like, oh, what am I grateful for? Affirmations, and that's fantastic. You should do that too. But there's nothing wrong with figuring out things that you're not good at. You gotta be honest with yourself. If you're not gonna be honest with yourself, then no one else is. And the only way for self-growth is to be honest with yourself. So grab a pencil, grab a notebook, reflect on your week, or even every single day at the end of the day, and see what you can work on, that something that happened during the day that you didn't quite like, or you could have spoken up more about it, and write that down. And then think about how you would have reacted in a world where it was your way. Just think about it. Thoughts are very important. Start to visualize it. It's gonna manifest itself. Tip number 3, meditation. Okay, you guys, so if you follow along with my Talk Tuesdays, you know I bring up meditation a lot. Like almost every single tip in all of my Talk Tuesdays is meditation, because that's how important it is. When you meditate, you you really just dive into your subconscious, you allow yourself to connect with nature and connect to things around you, and sometimes answers just come to you. You can find yourself really when you meditate. You can find truly who you are. Whenever you're in a rut, you can turn to meditation, you can turn to mindfulness, practicing mindfulness every day. You should do that. So it's really just an answer to everything. And how it relates to what I'm saying, which is it's okay to be wrong, is that when you meditate, you really understand that you're just a human. You're not perfect. It may seem that the whole world is trying to make you perfect and make you answer stuff perfectly, but really, like, what is the definition of perfect? Like, even society and stuff, like, their definition of perfect is what can suit them best, what will serve them best, not you. So your idea of perfect is very different, so you shouldn't be scared to be wrong or scared to try new things for the sake of being wrong, because there is no wrong. Like, realistically, opinions are opinions. There's no right, there's no wrong. Yes, you can get more educated on certain aspects or certain areas, and yes, you can tone it down in certain areas, and yes, you can change your mind, and yes, you can communicate, but how are you going to get to that point of sharing connections and ideas if you're so scared to be wrong that you don't say anything? So really getting that confidence back, you can do that through all 3 of these tips. I really highly suggest just doing these, and it's just good practice for your own soul and for your own spiritual journey, and it will just really help you guys in the long run. Yeah, I was really inclined to share this with you guys because this is something I'm working on too. Like, I was so scared of being wrong all the time. Like, even on tests, like, I would have horrible test anxiety. I'm not trying to say that, like, oh, it's okay to not study. Like, it's okay to not study and it's okay to always be wrong because that's what she's saying. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying don't be so scared to do things wrong because you're gonna learn from them. This world that we live in your own interpretation, which, by the way, there's no right or wrong answer for an explanation as to what this world is and why we're here and our purpose. I'm really trying to push people to think differently and have a different mindset going forward in their lives. And this could mean different things for everyone. There's no right, there's no wrong answer, which is why I always say meditation, the outcome's not going to be the same for everyone. Not everyone's going to feel the same way, but that's so beautiful. Like, being wrong, it's going to lead to you figuring out new things. If you're never wrong, you're never going to know what's right. That's kind of my 2 takes. I hope I alleviated some anxiety. If you guys are having time anxiety, school anxiety, test anxiety, work anxiety, just understand that you're a human. It's okay to be wrong. We're all wrong. No one is right always. Maybe Einstein? Just kidding. I don't know. No idea. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my Talk Tuesday. I will be back hopefully next week. Wait, do I have an exam? If I have an exam, I won't be back next week, but I'll be back eventually. And if you really enjoyed this Talk Tuesday, hit that subscribe notification and like, comment, and share this video with friends, family, whoever you feel like needs to hear this, and I will see you next week. See ya.